The film begins with a cave in the mountains. After a close-up shot of the cave, we are introduced to two girls, Abby and her sister Beth. After their mother's death, Beth became Abby's whole world. Life was going well for them until they learned that Beth had terminal cancer. Abby was devastated by the news, but she refused to give up. She began searching for new treatments and learned about a pharmaceutical research company that had discovered a cure. The problem was, the treatment was extremely expensive. Abby didn't have the money, so she decided to take on a dangerous job. She became a geologist on the frigid border between Europe and Russia, tasked with searching for uranium in the mountains. The job was risky and potentially life-threatening, but the pay was good, so she accepted. Abby dedicated herself to the work, but despite all their efforts, no uranium was found. Frustrated, Abby suggested to her colleague that they go deeper into the mountains and into the dense forests. But her colleague refused, fearing the dangers and the risk of crossing into the Russian border, where they weren't allowed to go. Desperate, Abby insisted. That night, she received a call from her father, who told her that Beth's health was worsening. Abby was worried not only for her sister, but also because the company hadn't given her any advance payment, money she needed urgently to begin Beth's treatment. She realized that unless she found uranium, she would never get paid. The next day, Abby decided to enter the forests alone. Her colleague warned her about wild animals and refused to join her. So, she borrowed his gun and set out on her journey. After walking for a long time, she began hearing strange noises. At first, she thought an animal was approaching and quickly drew her gun. But then she noticed a large, bare rock nearby. The sound seemed to be coming from it. When she picked it up, she realized it was something unusual, a rock unlike anything she had ever seen. Being a geologist, Abby had studied countless stones and minerals, but this one was different. She brought it back to her base, keeping it secret from the company. She believed it could be worth a fortune, enough to save Beth's life. Just then, her father called again, saying Beth's condition had worsened. Abby immediately decided to return home. On her way out, she told her colleague that she might never come back. To escape the area, she boarded a helicopter. Halfway through the flight, Abby noticed a strange object outside the window. At first, she thought it was a bird's wing, but then it slammed into the helicopter. Before she could react, the helicopter spun out of control and crashed. Abby lost consciousness. When she woke up, one pilot was already dead and the other badly injured. She gave him first aid and frantically searched for a radio to call for help, but the communication system was destroyed. Realizing no help was coming, Abby panicked. She had to save herself and the surviving pilot. Checking the map and compass, she discovered the nearest road was about 60 kilometers away, a long and dangerous journey in such conditions. That night, she lit a fire, hoping to be spotted, while trying to keep the injured pilot alive. But before dawn, the pilot died, and no one had seen the fire. Abby realized waiting for help was pointless. So, she packed supplies, food, the gun, and a weak walkie-talkie, then set out on her own. The walkie-talkie's battery was low, but she managed to charge it using the helicopter's battery. Soon, she heard the voice of a man named John. To her surprise, John said his helicopter had also crashed nearby. He described the surrounding forest and a lake, but his condition was terrible, his body badly injured, his leg broken. His radio was damaged too, but he had plenty of supplies and better equipment, which Abby could possibly repair using her battery and skills. She checked the map. John was only 30 kilometers away, half the distance compared to the road. Abby decided to head toward him, but John warned her that the path was dangerous and his equipment might not even work. Still, Abby couldn't risk wasting time. Her sister was running out of it. That night, she set up a small shelter. Before resting, she checked the strange black stone in her bag. To her shock, it began to change shape in her hands. No rock could ever bend and reshape itself. Was it advanced technology? An alien mineral? Abby didn't know. The next morning, she resumed her journey through the snowy wilderness. John kept trying to talk to her on the radio, but Abby scolded him, worried they would drain the battery too quickly. She switched it off and focused on the path ahead. Soon, she faced a steep mountain slope. It looked nearly impossible to climb. When she told John about it, he encouraged her but reminded her she couldn't save everyone. Abby grew angry and demanded motivation, not sympathy. She began climbing using her knife, but at one point, it broke, leaving her stranded on the cliff. Then she remembered the strange stone. Taking it out, she reshaped it into a sharp blade and used it to climb. The stone made the impossible climb easier, and Abby finally reached the top. But descending was even harder. A sheer drop awaited her. One wrong step meant death. So she reshaped the stone into a long rope and used it to rappel down safely. The descent was difficult. John immediately contacted Abby, warning her that the Russian border lay ahead. If she crossed it, she would be shot on sight. Terrified, Abby was about to turn back when she slipped. The stone slid from under her feet, sending her tumbling down the slope and severely injuring her leg. She quickly bandaged her wound and, despite the pain, pressed on. Evening fell, and finally, she spotted a settlement. Desperate for help, Abby rushed toward it, only to discover that the place was completely abandoned. Exhausted, she decided to spend the night there. She was starving but found only spoiled food. After treating her injured leg and giving herself a strength injection, she tried to rest. The next morning, strange noises caught her attention. Abby spotted a Russian soldier nearby. Panic struck. If caught, she could be captured or worse. She hid quickly, but the soldier was suspicious and followed her inside. Armed with her gun, Abby was ready. When the soldier appeared, both aimed at each other. In panic, Abby fired, accidentally shooting him in the leg. Shocked and frightened, she grabbed his rifle and searched his bag. To her surprise, the soldier also had a stone similar to Abby's, a black stone that could change shape and perform different functions. Just then, the soldier's walkie-talkie crackled to life. The voice on the other end sounded exactly like John. Abby was stunned. How could this same voice be speaking to both her and the soldier under different names? She began to realize that everything was somehow connected to the stone. She demanded answers from John through the soldier's walkie-talkie, but he remained silent. Instead, Abby decided to help the soldier. She bandaged his wound and offered to take him back to his base. The soldier agreed, as he too was lost and stranded. Though they were enemies, one from Europe and the other from Russia, they knew they had no choice but to cooperate if they wanted to survive. Both continued forward, struggling with their injuries. John, still speaking to Abby, began saying strange things, trying to fill her with fear and distrust toward the soldier. Abby realized John must be connected to the black stone. Horrified, she pulled it from her bag and threw it away. As they pressed on, disaster struck. The ice beneath the soldier's feet gave way, plunging him into the freezing lake. Abby tried to save him, but the ice cracked under her as well, and she too fell into the icy water. The freezing temperature numbed her entire body, but with great difficulty, she managed to crawl out. Shivering, she stripped off her wet clothes to preserve body heat and tried to recover. John's voice echoed again, even though she had thrown away the battery of the radio. Furious and terrified, Abby realized she could still hear him inside her head. Exhausted, she collapsed into sleep, dreaming of the beautiful moments she had once shared with her sister. Moments later, the sound of helicopter blades woke her. Summoning all her strength, Abby tried to signal for help, but she was too weak. Stumbling, she suddenly found herself near a car. Her strength gave out, her mind failed, and she rolled into a pit, the same mysterious pit shown at the beginning of the movie. Inside, she discovered warm water that revived her fading body. But she wasn't alone. A skeleton in a pilot's uniform lay nearby, with the name John on its tag. Abby was horrified. Was John, the man she had been speaking to all this time, already dead? Suddenly, countless black stones rose from the water and attached themselves to her. When Abby regained consciousness, she found herself in a strange, otherworldly place. The stones floated in the air all around her. John's voice returned, explaining that 65 years ago, he too had arrived here and had been trapped ever since. Abby realized the horrifying truth. The helicopter crash and everything that had happened were caused by these stones. They weren't ordinary rocks but alien entities, or perhaps ancient creatures, that had lived on Earth for thousands of years. No one knew whether they remained here by choice or compulsion, but they needed humans to survive. Unlike hostile aliens, they didn't kill, but instead kept humans alive, absorbing them into their strange existence. John had surrendered willingly, and the stones granted him life, though no longer a human one. Now John asked Abby if she wanted the same fate, but Abby refused. She didn't want to become part of their system, she only wanted to return to her sister. The next moment, she found herself magically standing in front of her house. Everything seemed perfect, as if all her suffering had been a dream. Overjoyed, she rushed inside and reunited with her sister. But Abby quickly realized it wasn't real. The aliens were showing her illusions. When she regained consciousness, she stood before her house's door again, only to see a violent blizzard raging outside. Determined, Abby stepped into the storm. The scenes blurred, and suddenly, she was shown being rescued. When Abby truly woke up, she was safe in her friend's apartment. Without wasting a second, she rushed home to her sister. There, she found Beth in her final moments. Abby stayed by her side, fulfilling her only wish, to be with her sister at the end. The aliens had granted Abby what she longed for, not survival, not power, but the chance to share her sister's last breath. The film ends with Abby, her father, and her dying sister, finally at peace with the reality of death, just as John had once told her. So that's it. Hope you enjoy the story. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more videos.